Oh my God.
Hi, everybody.
I think it's working. Hey, I see myself, so that's good. Um, you made it to the inaugural
Cool.
episode of Detroit City Supporter Radio.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
your
very exciting.
co-host, Dion DeGennaro.
And I am your other co-host, Sean Spence. Welcome. uh, yeah, we didn't
So,
really talk this part out. If you,
no, we're winging it like we normally do. So if you've been here before, you kind of know what's going on. If you're new to the situation, I'm sorry. Um, but I'm glad you're here. Um, we're calling this episode one, and I named it the reboot because obviously it was not called Detroit City Supporter Radio before. It was called WNGS Radio, and now we have rebooted it. So we're calling it episode one. Um, I wanted to mention that we're keeping all of the old episodes still online. You can go and listen to us rant for it was 33 episode. Each one was at least an hour. So if you want to go listen to 35 hours of
yeah,
content of us just rambling about whatever,
so much
uh,
ranting.
a lot of ranting, you can go check those out. It's all still relevant. Nothing's really changed. We just rebranded.
Yep.
Um, gonna have a little bit of a different format too. And honestly, I'm gonna have a lot more time to play with it because another thing that I'm assuming everyone has saw, but if you're listening and you have not, or I don't know you or whatever, um, hi, I'm Dion. I used to handle Northern Guard supporters comms. I did social media, I handled media requests, and I stepped away from doing that after 6 years, basically full time doing it on top of my day job.
Yeah.
And so I've stepped away and retired from Northern Guard. It's a very surreal, weird feeling. It's been basically a daily part of my life, like I said, since like 2014, 2015. And so with that, um, full disclosure, like I paid for the podcast out of my own pocket, took care of all the hosting before we did live. I bought all of the audio recording equipment out of pocket, the digital recorders, the microphones, all of that. So it's always kind of been mine. And I wanted to keep it going and still create the same content, but I also wanted to distance myself from being a part of Northern Guard. And not that I don't want to be a part of it. I just need for the transition for me to be fully away from it for the time being, and see where see where I end up as the season goes. But just happy to kind of speak for myself. So that's the end of my initial rant. Um, there's no hard
Opening
feelings,
rant
nothing like that.
completed. Yeah, it's like
Um,
you
but
just
yeah,
completed the
just
tutorial.
happy to be here.
Now you're
And
into the
yeah, now we're into the main quest.
hi. Welcome, Dion, to the land of zero responsibility.
It's going to be
Um,
great. And so anyway, yeah, it's going to give me time to play with this a lot more and do some fun stuff with it. The first of which we'll get to. But how are you doing, Sean?
I am I'm pretty well. I'm Sean Spence. Hi, everybody. How you doing? I, eh, you know, look,
I like what you put in the
I
show
told
notes.
Dion before we came on that I was listening to the wrong music to get hyped up for this, and so I was listening to Elliott Smith, which is just the wrong kind of
It's not hype
music.
up music.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not something you listen to on the way to an interview. You know what I mean? Like, how's it going? Like, I don't know, man. How good can it be?
Just
You know,
not yeah.
fine, I guess. I don't know.
So to lighten the mood, I just want to say what you put in the show notes, and it says that you're the same weird gnome.
That's me.
and
I
and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I also put Patreon hype train, or
Yeah,
brief embarrassed mention, which is what this really is. Like, hey, I've got a Patreon. It's called Words About Shapes.
you're
Um,
underselling it way too much.
I mean, um,
It
I
is
have.
the here. Okay, hold on. Well, Words About Shapes is the definitive source of all DCFC news. The official, unofficial, independent source of all DCFC news.
I mean, I feel so deeply uncomfortable with that characterization.
It's true. It's
Well,
totally
it's like
true.
because I don't consider myself like a news source exactly. I'm more like an essayist. I just sort of write about stuff and I try to, you know, just be honest about what I see and what I'm seeing and you know, and also which you will find if you actually read it, I clearly have like weird motivations related to like art and things like that, which I'm satisfying by doing this work. But in
It's
terms
what
of
makes
being
it
like
great.
in terms of being like a news source, I mean, I am someone who's been really intensely um, an observer and sometimes a participant in the Detroit City story since 2015 or so, and um, I bring that perspective to whatever's happening to Detroit City right now. And I can also write a little bit. So, you
Yeah,
know, it's not like
a little bit.
well, I mean, you know, I just feel like
it's great.
every story deserves to be told with some music,
Yeah,
and the most modern sports writing, um, you know, it's either it's writing, like it's like the thing I'm doing, or it's sports writing, where it's just, an inverted
yeah.
pyramid story.
And I totally relate to that because when I initially started shooting city matches photos, um, I like I was saw all the news photos of games and or like who was M Live was like a big early coverer for DCFC, and so they would have a photographer out, and the photos were like very journalism, very like here's a player heading a
Yeah,
ball, here's an extremely wide shot of supporters that are really far away,
yeah,
and just it didn't tell the story the way that I saw the story. And so part of like when I started shooting was to tell that story with a little bit more emotion evoked within the photos. So I totally relate to what you're saying in that um, yeah, there's it's better told with some music. That's a great way to put it.
yeah. I mean, I just I don't cleave my life into the art half and then the artless gray rectilinear half. There should be a little bit of art in everything. So, and the artless gray rectilinear shit needs to just have somebody draw on it, um, or whatever.
So,
Uh,
not
okay,
much has happened since we last had our episode. I think it was in November.
yeah, and promised one soon, I think.
We
So,
did. We did. I think
and
we
this is relatively soon in
time
geological terms.
time yes, time is relative. Um so not much has happened.
Yeah,
I guess we're what? I think we're in a new league, right?
yeah, I got that whole new league, and I, yeah, we have whole episodes about that. I don't really, like,
I
yeah,
don't even know where to start to unpack the last 3 months. It's like that would require serious effort in organizing a lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings, a lot of
yeah.
just sheer information,
I mean,
and
if you're
then
like, I would say if you're new here and you're trying to like catch up, I mean, what is really happening is essentially we're kind of leapfrogging over a league
yeah,
to the USL Championship. And realistically, USL League One would have been a much softer landing spot for Detroit City Football Club.
The
We could
move.
have, well, it would have the payroll. We wouldn't have been the lowest payroll in the league, which we are in the USL Championship, and and our roster was probably good enough, like in
Yeah.
situ, to just like move
Just
it
whoop.
forward.
Yep.
Like, yeah,
Yep. Yep.
exactly. We're still
Could have
competitive. Like,
kept a lot of guys.
yeah. Um, But apparently, the dictates of business say that the championship is where the money is, and the new investor that we needed to bring on um, in order to make all this happen with USL um, was mostly interested in the championship. And I think that they probably also were hearing from like sponsors and potential sponsors and things like that that a championship side was going to shake a lot more money out of them. Um, so here we are. Yeah, we're in the championship. Woo! In my notes it says, "Let's fire up a boondoggle, bro," because you know.
You're gonna need context for that
Uh,
because not everyone's
okay,
gonna know.
so what that means is that the US, the people who are critical of USL, myself included, often deride it as a de facto real estate company because their specialty in their investor slash owner New Rock's bailiwick is public financing of private stadiums.
Yep.
They are expert at the monorail speech. They've got the very
Oh man.
best fucking
Oh, I like
monorail
this reference.
speech. And we, Detroit City Football Club, are in the surprising and unfortunate position of finding that our mammoth investments in infrastructure that we neither control nor own are not appreciated by the new school board members in at Hamtramck, School Corporation, um, and that they didn't get any of that good candy
Nope.
during so they want more candy.
Never enough candy.
And there's that raises the prospect that there will never, in fact, be enough candy, um, and that we need to find somewhere else to be long term. Also, being a professional club that doesn't control um, your site is difficult, I would say,
Yep.
especially given what we've experienced in the last 24 months at that site
Yep.
at Keyworth Stadium,
I don't
which
think
if you
anyone
don't
is.
know,
Yeah.
is like the bathrooms kind of got destroyed. The bathrooms we had spent quite a lot of money to renovate um,
Et
because
cetera.
the
Et cetera.
stadium's always open. Some kids got in there and decided that
They
kicking
were
the
bored.
handles off would be fun, and turns out the first one was fun, so let's do all of them. And next thing you know, you're like, wow, what do we do? We just kicked off all these handles. We better leave. Um, and the club is like, wow, how often can we afford to do this? Like, um, so because of that, we're probably going to need to talk to New Rock. And
Yeah.
worst timeline. Everything sucks.
Well, so yeah, and with that, what that means is, we may be put into a situation where we have to get a new stadium,
Yeah.
and that there's a potential because of USL and their propensity to make real estate deals that use public funding, that we are put in a position where we may take public funding. And so, if you as a supporter doesn't like that, it's important to speak up about it. And
Yeah.
I mean, not, we'll probably talk about this at some point, but I mean, you saw what
We'll
happened
have to
this
have
week
those.
with Bang. Yeah. So it's important to use your voice if the club that you love is doing something you don't agree with. And contacting them directly, and that's really the way to do it. Gets more shit done faster. Um,
Yeah, I just think that that I think that the way we need to approach it as supporters who abhor this sort of arrangement is we need to portray it as sort of 90s business. You
Yeah.
know, that was some third way bullshit that everyone did for a while, but we're hip to it now. Like
Yep.
you're like we watch what happened to Bridgeview, how their bonds got fucking like destroyed because
Yep.
they couldn't pay their nut on their ridiculous balloon
Stadium.
payment on that stadium.
Yep.
Um,
Which is
and
bad. It's really bad.
like um, anything to do with bonds and stuff, like no, we can't be financing. We do
So
if we're going to do private bonds, that's one thing, but nothing from the
yeah,
public. And we just need to
to sum it up, like I think we were
we're
talking
getting
before
deep in the
this.
weeds, like off the
Yeah,
jump here. Talk about
we are.
players stuff.
Sorry,
Fuck that. We're going to talk about like
sorry, everyone.
real estate deals. Woo!
But to I think you said it nicely in our pre-stream chat that we had. The devil will be in the details on that, and it's we don't know anything's going to happen one way or another, but that's the trajectory we're on.
Right,
So
right,
realistically, keep your eyes open because that's
right.
kind of what our next step would have to be as a club. And so, like you said, the devil's in the details on that. And it's unfortunate that it's looming over us with this move into this league because you want to take the next point? That was a
Oh,
segue.
sorry. I was deep in my thoughts there.
No, you're good.
Um, yeah. Well, I mean, like, where did you what did you lead me into? The West, the
Yeah, the
league is not.
Westerns.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, I was
Great
not.
segue. This is the best segue.
I
Live
blew
TV,
it.
everyone.
I zoned out. I'm sorry. I
No, you're
started
good.
reading my own notes like way too deeply and going, why did I say that? Like, okay. Anyway, um, well, I mean, yeah,
So there are some benefits to being in USL.
massive benefits to being in USL, which I mean, primarily have to do with the fact that they're, an established thing, which is not apparently a boondoggle at every level, and the other clubs are tend to be actual clubs or some reasonable approximation of an actual club, and like I said in the notes, like a lot of the clubs we played in Nisa, it seemed like they were like those kind of fake towns from westerns. They were just like little pop up like
Facade towns,
yeah,
yeah.
like we're a club, we're a club, we're a club. Please don't look back there. Um, and
Like a movie set.
right, and you know these are clubs that have been around for a while. They've got roster continuity. They've got supporters groups. They've got ways they like to play. Some of them. So I mean, this is like this is the best league we've ever been in by a wide margin, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's a much more big time deal. Like we are like, there's going to be, there's not going to be any locker rooms that are tense and shit like that.
Hmm.
Um, and we will be outnumbered in every away arena except for the MLS two sides that are still around, which is like
Yep.
Red Bulls in Atlanta too.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think
I think
that's
that's the
it.
ones in our conference.
Yep.
And they'll have nobody, but I mean, whatever.
Yeah, so getting outnumbered.
Yeah, be
It's gonna be
outnumbered,
weird.
we'll be outshouted, and um,
We won't. I
eh,
think someone said it. Maybe was it at the owners meeting where I don't remember where it was said, but like where this is the first time that like our away supporters are going to be outnumbered, except in Grand Rapids or something like that.
yeah, I mean, I do remember like going to that one Grand Rapids match where they outnumbered us and then tore us apart on the counter.
Yeah, that
It
sucked.
was like a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
But that was a different experience. And we did our usual thing, but it felt different to be outnumbered by the kind of um, the antis who were pursing their lips at our antics, which I mean is how it felt. It was like the
Yeah.
entire city of Grand Rapids was going at us. Um, so I mean it was weird. And so hey, travel with
Yeah.
the team. It'll be weird.
It'll be weird.
I don't even
Well,
know what
yeah,
I'm
I mean,
saying.
Jackie and I are going to San Antonio, and it sounds like we're going to have maybe a couple dozen people there, which is honestly an impressive first showing on the other side of the country.
Right.
So yeah, we're going to definitely, say we're not fucking around.
Um,
Um,
and
which,
the other thing that we're going to run into this year is other supporters groups, which we've never really had.
yep.
And to that end, um,
Yeah, so part of the new format is we're going to be adding another co-host, guest host, whatever they would like to be called. We'll leave it up to them what they get called. But I it's I mean we don't even have a name for it yet either. I
I don't know.
think I
Yeah, I don't
think
know.
right now we have it in our notes as Jam Notes.
Jam notes.
Jam Notes.
Yeah, this is like for the culture. We're gonna. Jamie is gonna come on, and Jamie is a very good friend of my wife and a good friend of all of ours, obviously.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she also, prior to moving to Michigan, was a Phoenix supporter.
Oof,
She lived there,
yikes.
I believe, and
Yikes.
she is a moderator and has been all along for a huge USL Discord,
Facebook group.
or Facebook group. Right. Sorry.
You're good.
Um,
And
so
so she
so
knows.
she's kind of she's very conversant with the USL cultures that exist, and she's awesome. And so she's going to come on, and we're going to talk mostly about butts, I think.
I don't think we have a choice.
You know, I mean, you invite Jamie, you talk about butts. That's we all understand that's the
I
deal.
think when we wrote out her contract, one of the lines in there was 25% of her time on the air is dedicated to talking about butts at
I
minimum
mean, yeah, I
every
mean,
episode. So
I think we'll be lucky to escape with that.
yeah,
That
no, I mean I was surprised she even went that low, but you know.
so yeah,
Um, so with all that being said, awesome things to look forward to in future episodes. And then, like, who knows what else? Like I said, we're going to have a lot more. I'm going to be investing a lot more time and energy into making this really cool now that I have it. So let's talk about
um,
City.
okay. Well,
Like,
then
we're
I'm
supposed
going
to be
to
talking about
invest
City.
less, if that's okay. I'm just
You
going to
go
like,
ahead, man.
yeah, I'm just going
Yeah, no.
to. I'm barely even going to be here. I'm going to create a bot that just like says something inscrutable every like 45
A
seconds.
Sean Avatar.
Right. Um, okay. Yeah. So let's move on to actual football players, starting with the wee ones. As I understand it, they
Who's the wee ones?
the wee well like the
Well, because we've never talked
WEE.
about this.
Okay, so
So
right, I guess so.
right. There's no U23 teams anymore.
Right. Um,
Or for men. The women's side is a semi-pro side for now, but City Youth, what's the deal with them?
well, as a part of the U.S., I mean, the youth programs continue to grow, and we continue to kind of filter the best kids upward and get them to work together, with an
Almost
eye
like a
toward
club does, right?
right, with an eye toward what we're about to do. I think, which is about to be announced on Friday, I believe, which will be the first members of the Detroit City FC Academy side, that will compete in the USL Academy programs. I think these are like under 18 sides, like basically high school kids,
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
or whatever, anybody that
Yeah.
can compete against
Yep.
high school kids. Um, so we're gonna this is gonna be, one of the challenges I write about, in writing about Detroit City, is that talking about very young players and getting very specific about them is, both foolish and potentially damaging to
You
them.
did say that. Yeah, you said that
Um,
in one, I think more
so
than one of your pieces.
so this is going to be one of those kind of like group challenges for everyone. Like, we're about to get a bunch of names of a bunch of kids that we really should kind of watch as far in the background as possible. Like don't all start following these kids necessarily, or you know, if you do, don't interact a bunch. 14-year-olds don't want to hear from a 35-year-old who's psyched she made the academy team. No. Um, so I mean,
But that's really cool and exciting because
it is very cool, and you
it's what a
know,
club does.
right. Like the idea has got to be if you're going to filter people upward and get kids moving into the first team, at some point they've all got to and like let's see who the best, you know, 40 of them are.
Yeah.
And then and start to
And how they measure up against other
right.
kids around the country
Right.
in
And
that.
the thing about football is it's got a lot of tests, every weekend there's a test. So, you get to see how your development schema is playing out against other teams, and you get but the other thing I would say is that how it's going will not be entirely decided by the results. It is an
Yeah.
established fact that in youth football, it is relatively simple to create a winning side simply by choosing the largest, fastest athletes you can and teaching them to play rudimentary football.
Yep.
Um, and letting their just, size and power and strength overwhelm um, the other teams. Um,
Yep.
and
Which isn't how you necessarily best develop players.
right, the problem is that unless you have some magical formula which allows you to predict which 13-year-olds are not only really badass at 13, but are also going to not physically drop off compared to their sort of smaller compatriots or peers once they're 18, you know, you could make something out of that, but the fact is you don't know. And yes, size and strength are just like pace, um, are advantages in any sport, and
Mm-hmm.
soccer is a sport.
Yep.
But they are also not compulsory even at the very highest level um, if your technical and mental um,
Yeah.
skills can find a way to compensate.
Yep.
Um, so
Name some city players who fit that mold. I mean, really, a good
yeah,
chunk of them, right?
right, right. I mean, we do not like you don't look up and down the roster that we have right now and go, "That's an explosive athlete." A lot, very often, they're
Yeah.
all pretty good athletes. They're well balanced. They tend to have good lateral quickness. There's not a lot of guys that can only run straight in a line. Um, but more importantly, they know how to think of the game. They've got good technical skills. They can keep the ball.
Yep.
Um, they don't make mistakes. Um,
Yeah. And
and
so it'll be cool to tie that into
right,
developing from a young age and getting a system in kids' heads, like a
right,
DCFC system of
right.
that
I mean,
throughout their entire
I just
career.
want everybody needs a little beard to stroke while they're watching kids play. You're watching the academy side play. This is all you do. It's just this right here. You can't yell. You can't comment. You just sit and think and stroke your beard. Just kind of okay, okay, because
So,
there's miles to go between an academy player and a professional, but this is where it starts.
yeah.
But this is where you begin to grow your own seed.
Yeah.
So
So, yeah, no, it's going to be super exciting and
I'm
yeah,
excited about
a
it too.
good
Like I think
building.
it'll probably be like lots of matches that you can watch on YouTube.
Hmm.
If you're inclined to nerd out and kind of scout the next generation, you can. I just ask you not to take your speculations to Twitter so that these poor kids can like get mocked in high school.
Very good advice. Let's so let's talk about the other new development. We're no longer in UWS.
Right.
They mentioned this with the announcements, everything else. I mean, if you don't know this, why are you listening? Um,
I mean,
but so we're in the USLW league, playing against some old friends.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think that we had kind of talked about how the women and their short league season is very reminiscent of the NPSL days for the men, and then and then we went and joined the USLW, and they like organized this Great Lakes conference that sort of just wrapped
Like,
a little league
what?
around us. Like, here you go, Detroit City. Here's everybody you remember, except for like Erie, because they don't have a team. Like, if they have a team, and we used to play them in the NPSL, they're in this league. So Michigan, Ann Arbor, Midwest United. Um, what's the other one? Kalamazoo.
Yeah, I was gonna say Kalamazoo.
Um, you know, and Flint, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Or adding the Flint Bucks women. So, um, lots of Michigan scalps to claim. An away day to Louisville, which I mean, if they're playing in that main stadium, it is like like
Yeah. That would be
really
really cool if they're playing in that stadium.
really cool.
Yeah.
Um, uh, you know, um, and I mean, there's a ton of talent in the team. These are away days that a family can get to, or that you can get to on short notice. And they're great fun, and it's great football. Like
It's a good way
we're
to build a culture.
right, exactly. I mean, like when I started watching City back in like I went to like I was I mean everybody like if you don't know the story I'll just tell it real quickly, but
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was I was I was the editor in chief for Hot Time in the Old Town, which is a Chicago Fire blog, and a Chicago team was playing Detroit City in the U.S. Open Cup in Livonia in 2014, and
Stevenson.
and and yeah, and so it was kind of one of those things where it's like, Chicago area, it's close enough, I can get there. And I was a little curious. I hadn't heard a lot about Detroit City, but I'd heard a little bit, that like, oh, there's something going on there. Um, cool. So I went down, and it kind of blew my mind, and I wrote a big piece about it. About the match was pretty great, like a
God.
real like
Uh,
the most violent Detroit City
a
match you've
real
ever
slobber
seen.
knocker.
Yeah. And but for all that, great. And we wound up losing. There were like thousands of people there. I mean, it was really legitimately
There's probably
full.
like 2,000 people there.
Like, yeah, and 2,000 people on the away stand at a high school stadium. Like, it was full, and there were flags, and I mean, I was not ready for what I was experiencing. And I've been around, fire supporters who pull off crazy tifo, and like protested their own front office for years on end. And like, I mean, they're not just
Yeah.
like out there like, knitting doilies, they're serious. Um, and if they were knitting doilies, they'd be pretty badass, probably. Like, they'd be some CS 97 doilies. I don't know. Um, but like, this was still on like another level. And I started at that point. I started following the team, and I mean, here I'm a soccer writer basically. But this team I'm coming to week in and week out, I have no idea who any of these guys are. Like, no idea.
Yeah.
I've heard of a single goddamn one of them. Like Cyrus Sadie, who the fuck is that? Sean Claude Lawson, I don't know. You know, um,
You used
and
you got to
you
use the
know,
analogy from the notes.
the notes was what was I didn't know J. Baby Adkins from J. Edgar Hoover. Um, and, and, you know, it was getting to know the players, not like, it's not like me and Jeff Adkins became friends. Like, I just got to know like who he was and what his game was like, and then what everyone's game was like, what Dave Edwardson's game was like, what Sebi Harris's game was like. Um, and um, it was through that process that I really, became entangled in this whole thing. Um, and so I'm saying, if you're looking at this and going, I don't know, and the old days, but I don't know any of the players. Like, the only solution to that is to kind of get to know the players, I think.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I have thoughtfully provided for $3 a month on my blog. I'm sorry, I didn't mean this to be like promotional, but
This
like
is a sponsored
I wrote
show.
I wrote like I mean,
Words About
um,
Shapes is proud to sponsor DC for
yeah,
that one.
exactly. Permashave. Um, yeah. So just show up to some matches, and pay attention, like, specifically to the football, and it'll it's not like it'll take you long to figure this out.
No,
Uh, so
just gotta do a little reading, little watching.
right, and we're going to help you tonight because I'm going to talk you through basically everyone that's been announced so far, real brief.
Boom. Yeah. How
Um,
or the lightning round.
lightning round. Here we go. You hit me with the name, and I'll do the summary.
Oh, you're
Don't
just
you
gonna
don't have to do them
go.
in order. You can mix them up
Oh,
if you want. I'm
I
ready.
can mix them up. Oh
You
man, this is gonna be fun for me. I'm gonna forget which ones I do though.
I wrote these down
Um,
in the order that I had they were published, because that was the only way I could keep it straight. I kept like screwing it up and missing somebody.
let's go. We'll start. Let's just start at the top. Let's start at the
Okay.
top. That way I don't skip around, miss anyone, whatever. Madison Duncan, go.
Madison Duncan was the 2021 MVP, Black Arrow, whatever we're going to wind up calling that, Golden Bow, whatever. She is a right back who can also play left back. She is a creative force and physically incredibly strong. Like she doesn't look as strong as she is. One of her key skills is she can shepherd dribblers just off the ball. Like they just
Ooh.
it looks in real time like she started running with them and like maybe
Whoop.
talked them out of dribbling. It was just like, I think that maybe it'd be better for you if you just slow down slightly and let me run onto the ball.
Let
And
me just
that's what
sneak in
happened.
there.
Right. And she kind of just moves them off the ball. Madison is really, really good and will probably start and play virtually every minute this year.
Keep your eye on Madison. Kenna.
Kenna
Kenna White.
White, Kennedy is her full name. Kennedy White. She is, I believe, a senior now at Bowling Green University. She is also an OG Detroit City player, one of the first players announced the very first season. Has started virtually every match she's been available. She is a very quick point of the spear forward, who can also play a little bit on the wing. It looks like she's been playing a little bit on the wing this year because she had Maddie Wolfenbauer on her team in college. But she
Yeah.
really like she's the kind of player that you kind of if you've never even if you've never watched football, when she turns and runs on the ball, you kind of get that ooh, like okay, something's about to happen
I
here.
have to watch this. Yeah,
Right,
like yeah,
right.
yeah. This is important.
Yeah. Oh, it's about to
Uh,
happen. Let's pay attention. Yeah.
Shannon McCarthy,
Shannon McCarthy is brand new for 2022.
a new signing. Welcome home.
Sorry, it sounds like
The
we're
new
putting
signing 20.
a new car. Shannon McCarthy is she played 3 years, I believe, maybe 2 years in Kazakhstan for a Champions League team that
Oh,
was knocked out 2 years running by Bayern Munich. So, um,
that that well, will club.
yeah, Now, I will say that Bayern don't take women's football as
Of
seriously as
course,
maybe they
of
should.
course. Yeah,
But
all of Europe
still,
getting
anytime you're
better.
lining up in a European match against Bayern Munich, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
fuck.
yeah.
Um, and she is a very quick defender. I think she can play really right across the back line, although she's a little undersized as a center back, but she makes up for that by being like an incredible athlete, super explosive. She is a different kind of defender than we've had.
Okay.
She's combative. Um, really seems to kind of has a little bit of that Yazid like
Get grinds
like
it out in there.
love for like
Yeah.
the physical
Yeah.
half of the game. Yeah, I mean, really, and she was at the kit reveal and she knew to kiss and tap the badge, so she's a pro. She's been around the world. She knows what to do. It's a new kit. Yep, yeah, right here. Woo, number one. All right, everyone does that. You got to do that. So, and she did. So, what a pro. Um,
Eliza Baron.
Liza Barron um, is someone that I expect to be around the club as long going forward in many capacities. She is a center back. She's German. Although she's lived in the United States for I think about 10 years now. She was a Bowling Green player, kind of a role player, had like horrible injuries, and then had her big moment was the conference tournament her senior year. She wound up being the MVP. She scored a couple big goals from the back
Nice.
line.
Wow.
And she is a player who like reads the game very well and just kind of knows how to play football. She plays on Dave Dway's indoor team.
Yeah.
Has been.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
so that's a Detroit City's mark of excellence. Gonna play with Dave. I don't know. I don't know.
Um, oh, no, no, that's like, dude, where else are you gonna get that fucking insight? Dude, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, no, this is like definitive, like, words about shapes, exclusive
This is
information.
weird. It's all deep cuts, man.
Yeah, if you want to feel on the inside, it's only $3 a month. Uh,
Good God, we gotta stop promoting this. It's embarrassing.
Marley Taylor.
Marley Taylor is a creative midfielder. She is. I can't remember where she's from. Um, you know, somewhere around Samland. Um,
Sam Land.
well, she's. I think she's from Canton. She might be from Canton or the Canton area there, somewhere like
Yeah,
that. I don't know.
I think
Um,
that's right, actually.
but she is. She's a player who she's very young. I think she's going to be like just was a
Yep.
sophomore in college, and really showed a lot last year. Scored a big goal in the opener against Muskegon, the winning goal
Hmm.
on a pure volley, just kind of as the game was like petering out.
Oh, yeah, I remember that goal.
Um,
Yeah, it was out of nowhere.
yeah, and she. Um, she's one of those players who plays like she's able to kind of play with her head up despite the midfield always being pretty crowded. And unlike a lot of those players, she's not tiny. You know what I mean? Like a lot of players who play with their head up in midfield tend to be like physically able to be overwhelmed. I'm thinking of like classic Cyrus Sadie before he was swole. You know, um, like if a 6 footer just kind of comes and pushes him, like, well, now he's in trouble. Marley is not like a wee little midfielder. She's I think 5'9" or so, and she plays pretty big, and so there's a lot there. I think she's super promising to me.
Your yeah, your piece on her too was really, I really liked it a lot. If I recall, it talked about like overcoming. Oh, wait, hold on.
It's about living in the now. I think
Yeah, living in
like
the now.
her,
That's what it was.
like
Yeah,
how she just doesn't like. I mean, that's I'm in these pieces, I'm combining whatever observations I've had of them in random moments at training or before matches with the things I've seen on the field and like trying to come up with a theory of the game which explains the game.
yeah,
Uh, so
yeah. No, yeah. That was, I specifically remember her piece as being one that I really liked of yours. Because it was really like you said, it combines a bunch of different stuff. I'm like, wow, yeah, there's definitely layers to this. Mega Miles.
Megan Miles is a somebody who could wear the armband. She is
Wow.
a full-time coach uh, for Detroit City West, and is I can't remember, I think it was one of her teams that walked out with the team on the last match last year. They were
Hmm.
all very excited to see their coach Megan in her uniform.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
She was a pressing forward basically as a player in college a few years ago. She is now more of a defensive midfielder, kind of come in and settle things down late in a match. You're trying to like salt away kind of player. Really positive, a great leader on and off the field, and real asset in roster terms.
Nice. Rachel Philpotts.
Rachel Philpotts is the player that I want to issue my "I slept on you" apology for 2021 because she uh, going back over the game footage we have of her, she's really, really good. She's 23. I think she's graduated from University of Wisconsin Milwaukee. Um, she was, you know, like someone who played every minute for her entire college career as a defensive midfielder,
Wow.
and was kind of like a legend at here in Flint at Powers Catholic as a high school player. Um, and she's like what I wrote about her is that um, she's one of the most obviously competitive people I've seen on the women's side. Like she really um, is when there's a match to be played, like she is in it and serious and demanding in a way that's really pretty great for a team if if the team has enough resilience to hear what she has to say. And I mean, she's a hell of a player. I mean, she can like I really think she's probably the starting defensive midfielder um, because from what I saw last year, I mean, she can do everything in that position. Um, so you know,
The
I am very high on her game.
the quote that you used in your piece about her was from her Twitter bio, if I recall correctly, and it
Hmm.
was it only
Only
fools are
fools are really
satisfied?
satisfied, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
so you think that like encapsulates her
I think it.
as a player, as a
Um,
person?
I mean, it like I came across that late in the process of trying to figure her out. Watching
Yeah.
her, like trying to like watching her, like um, be serious. In that Midwest United match, she played from the beginning,
Yep.
and when the moments where it was going poorly, um, she was not shy about assessing that situation in real time and giving a frank critique, let's say. And that is something that I think a lot of times is missing in women's sports just because it's socialized out of women. This like that kind of aggressive leadership is not something that women are encouraged to develop in the same way that men are in most societies, um,
Reminds me of like
in the USA.
A Dave as a
Right,
defensive midfielder,
right. Well,
directing
I mean,
the team, directing the game.
right. No one would say that Stevie Carroll's like out of line if he's barking at someone on the field. Like, they
Yeah.
clearly blew an assignment. Like this is, they've like they're counting on each other. And that's really exactly the vibe I get from Rachel is that she's like, what like that channel's yours. Like, you left everyone
Yeah.
hanging out to dry here. Like, I mean, she's like not just yelling, she's explaining what went wrong in a way that I, as a person who was, famously hot-headed as a teammate, really recognize. Like, I did a lot of that. Let me
I'm gonna
explain to them. I'm going to
I'm
tell
gonna
you why this is wrong.
I'm gonna
Yes.
butcher Becca's last name.
I don't know.
Prisbilo.
I'm
That's
sure it's
not
like,
like
it's like
my. I don't
shrib.
know
It's
that.
probably like shriblo or something. I don't
Yeah, I don't know.
know.
But Becca.
Becca has been she and talk about OGs. She's another OG for sure. She started the very first women's match. She started, excuse me, mm, chai, a huge number of the matches that have been played by Detroit City so far. Uh, she is a Detroit City West product, and really a like a positive, upbeat, like um,
Keeper. She's a keeper.
she's a keeper. Sorry, but like she like it's very easy as a keeper to let all of your exhortations become negative, right? Because I mean, you know, if you
It's
have
all on your
anything
shoulders.
if you have
Yeah.
anything to say, something's probably gone wrong. And it's like she doesn't come across that way at all. And she's also I don't she's not a great shot stopper. She's all right, but she's very good with her feet.
Hmm.
For her age and for being a lifelong keeper, she I talked to her a piece about her doing drills with the field players, and Sam loves that, and I
Yeah.
feel like it's part of why she plays because he wants to, he wants to play that sweeper keeper
Yep.
session style. So um, yeah, keeper palooza. If we're just going down the list, Gabby, here
Yeah,
we got
let's
three in
go.
a
Yeah,
row.
Gabby.
Okay, so Becca is the young one. Gabby is the most experienced one. Gabby Shriver, who was Gabby Garuder before she was married, played at Michigan State, has played with a couple women's teams since, played with Detroit City last year, looked really great in the on the two side, and
Let's say she
basically,
didn't play for the first side too much, right?
no, like she kind of, I think it was one of those things where I think she was, you know, an adult who has a full time job and who,
Yeah.
like, it was kind of like,
Commitment level and all of
how
that. Yeah.
how it takes a while to figure out that a keeper is any good, right? Like, because
Yep.
how many incidents do you have to review, and how much control do they really have over them? Um, and I think that, she's somebody who kind of was like, hey, I'm interested, and they were like, okay, well, we'll give you time in the second team, and like, she looked great, and they were
Yeah.
like, and I think Sam was kind of like, oh, okay, well, let's move her up there. She is another one she's like, the main thing to me is she's incredibly mobile around the box. She really moves around the box well, and that allows her to really kind of kickstart possession a lot of times, or counterattacks, because she's not afraid to kind of overlaps like laggardly people, get right out to the edge of the box and like release someone.
Yeah.
Uh,
And yeah,
yeah, and
get
she's
it
a pretty
going.
decent shot stopper. She's a good athlete. Like, she's got good balance and pretty decent
Yeah.
hands. So I mean,
Nice.
like,
Yeah.
it's weird how many keepers don't really have great hands. They don't catch the ball that comfortably. They'll not, because I mean, anymore, are you really trying to catch it? If you're well trained, you're probably not trying to catch it that much.
Yeah. Just trying to
But
get it the fuck out of there.
right, Gabby does just catch it a lot. And speaking
Bethany
of,
Copel.
and then we're gonna, use the well trained thing. If you want to see how a modern goalkeeper, you know, is trained to play the position, watch Bethany Copel, because she is someone who was an absolute Iron Woman for Indiana University. Started literally every minute of every match from the moment she arrived on campus as a freshman until she blew out her knee, right before a Big Ten playoff match last year, or 2 years ago. So she was announced for Detroit City last year, and then after that, she blew out her knee and she never played
I was
for
just
us.
saying she never played. I
Um,
don't remember her playing.
but she did come back and get a few, like, kind of preseason friendly type things in, with a few local teams later in July, because I've seen footage from those,
Okay.
where she's clearly got a big knee brace on, but is, I think she might bring another level to that position. She is looks a bit more like a classic keeper. She's tall and rangy, fairly explosive when she goes for the ball, and has, there is no substitute. There's a reason keepers get better and better and better until they're 30, 35 years old. It's because nothing is more important in that position than experience, which is why I'm hopeful for Nate this year.
Yeah.
He's got more and more experience than he ever has, and why I'm really excited to see what Bethany Copel has, because she has played, like, more than 10,000 minutes of top flight football. I can't, not 10,000. I don't remember how many. Like, she's played so much NCAA Division One football that, you know, it's impossible for me to imagine that she hasn't learned a great deal in that time, and I'm excited to see it. Um,
Nice. So that's
and
our
I
keepers.
feel like I'm going way too deep into this because,
No, it's good. It's good
good
insight.
God, yeah.
So
Meg
Margaret Berry.
Margaret Berry is a center back. She is what we would call a classic center back. She is strong, incredibly strong, basically immovable, like, and good in the air.
Immovable.
Well, I mean, like,
I get what you mean.
you know,
I just like the description.
there's a certain amount of, like, give and take in the jostling game, and Margaret does not have to give much. She just, when it comes to jostling, she's just taking. Um, and she's a good passer. She scored like a miracle goal last year, from like
Yeah, from way
35
out,
yards.
35. Yeah.
Um, where was that? Lansing? It was
Oh
somewhere I traveled to.
man.
But I mean, yeah, just
Yeah,
a
I don't
really
remember.
nice goal. And she's another OG. She's been here five ever. So, speaking of OGs,
Yep.
another is Grace Philpotts. Grace is a left back, and what you need to know about Grace is that um, she's really fucking fast, man. Um, she had like, I mean, Powers Catholic is a pretty decent high school. Her cousin, Rachel Philpotts is her cousin.
Okay.
Grace and Rachel are
Yeah.
cousins. Her cousin Rachel, was the football superstar there, and Grace was very good and was like all state and all that too. But she also was a sprinter for the track team, and put up the third best 100 time in school history. Which Powers has had a strong track program for women for 30 years, 40 years. Um, so third best all time. That's you're quick.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's crazy.
and she always comes in late because she's a DePaul University player, and they're on trimesters, so she won't be here right at the beginning of the season. If I'm guessing that this will what happened last year is what will happen this year, which is that somebody else plays that position until Grace kind of shows up and gets into form, and then she takes it over. Late in the season last year, she was the starter and really created. She creates tons of. I mean, she's a modern flying wingback. She's very aggressive. She's incredibly fast. She creates
Nice.
lots of chances going forward.
Fun
Um,
player to watch.
yeah, a
Brooke
lot of fun.
Sleva.
Slava is a younger player. I think she's just like 20. She just completed her freshman year at Western Kentucky, I believe. She was like on the all freshman team for um, whatever conference, Atlantic 10. Is that the Hilltoppers? The MAC?
I'm
I don't
not
know.
not a
Whatever.
college guy.
Yeah, whatever conference she was in, she was all freshman for that conference.
Nice.
She scored a couple goals. She was mostly an attacking sub, and that's probably what she'll be
Nice.
for
Some
City
depth.
this year. She's an attacking sub, like an inside left, right-footed,
Okay. Yeah,
girl
yeah.
that's so quick.
Good.
Gabby
Good to have.
Tremonti, yes, good to have. Well, I mean, the younger women um, you know, will get a chance to prove themselves during practice and get a chance to, earn playing time. And there's, this is another summer league, so there's lots of subs. It's not three subs in 90 minutes,
Yep.
A lot of people will see minutes this year. Moving forward to the last two that we have to mention, Gabby Tremonti is someone who um, kind of came out of nowhere to me last year. She was just out of high school. I think she's had her freshman year of college now. But she wound up playing a ton of minutes for the first team, played quite a bit for the second team, because I think Sam just wanted to keep her playing.
Yep.
But the thing for the first team is, it's like, I think she kind of got thrown in with some older players and just kept looking good. Like, just kept making good decisions, kept really playing well. And so she kept getting minutes. And she wasn't somebody that was incredibly highly touted. She wasn't somebody that um, I think that if you looked at her, if you did like an NFL combine on her, you'd be like, what an eye popping athlete she is. But she seems to be somebody who has that X factor that defenders have, who can kind of see how it's about to happen and figure out where they need to be to keep it from happening. So, you know,
Nice.
and finally, Acadia Murphy is honestly someone I don't know anything about. She's a senior in high school. she's her. She's just graduated from high school. I mean, it looks like she's a good athlete. She plays defense. Um,
Was she in the city
for
program?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe she has played a little bit with City. Um, she's played a lot of high. She recently played high school soccer and kind of tore that up for like Dexter High School. She's from Dexter. So Katie Murphy. I don't know. She's really young. Like 18. So she's probably a little more one for the future, but I mean, we'll get to see what
We'll
she
see.
has
Yeah.
at some point this year, and
So yeah,
that's
we did it.
what's and we're still like 2 months away from really practice being serious, so like this may be the last time we talk much about the women for a little while on the show, because it's going to be sort of dormant until the colleges start letting out and we start to have like real practices where more than 12 women are there. um,
We'll cover new signings if there's any,
right. There
and
will
bring them
there
up.
I mean there are I have a list of more signings. There's more. Oh, there's more. Sam can't help it. He
So
just
we'll
he
keep
just
it.
like recruits
We'll
like most people breathe.
we'll keep it going, because we're gonna be doing this weekly. So we'll update with your scouting, as they get announced. But yeah, like you said, we've still got a while to go before that. But definitely, we want to make a good showing. Do your homework.
I
If
feel
you
like we're
don't know
we're
where to
making
look,
we're making this episode as grueling as
oh
possible
yeah,
for
oh
the
yeah.
like the people. Hi folks, it's episode 1.
They're
Welcome
not
aboard.
always like this. We have a
Settle
lot
the
to
fuck
cover.
in. We ain't going nowhere, and neither are you.
So we'll touch more on that in future episodes.
Right.
Um, like you said 5 minutes ago. The
It's been a long
men,
time. The
the men,
men.
the men.
Yeah. It's
Wow.
raining men. Hallelujah.
Except it's really not. It's like a
It's
light
raining. Yeah,
drizzle.
exactly.
It's a
If it could rain male soccer players down on the Detroit City roster, I'm sure Trevor would appreciate it. Um,
So how far out are we now, and
10
how many
days,
players do we have?
17.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I don't want to be alarmist because, like, it is absolutely impossible to, first of all, estimate how many irons Trevor has in the fire right now.
yep.
Um, MLS teams are not cutting their guys as early as they had been. They've I think that there's been some chicanery with like some of the internationals coming in for MLS squads like arrived later than usual, and so they haven't cut all there's still like some shit that
Are
could
you
happen
saying
on
this is
that.
the, are you saying the pandemic
No,
is
well,
why?
I think that like this is a situation where a couple weeks makes a big difference, and
Yep.
I think that that's what we're talking about is like MLS sides have kind of held on to a couple of guys that they maybe know really aren't in their plans because what if this guy gets hurt and we've got actual matches now that are competitive, so we gotta we're gonna keep this guy for like knowing that anytime before April 25th we can kill his like and just what we've paid you is what we owe you, bro, out the
Yeah.
door. So I mean I think that's what it comes down to is that
Interesting.
they've still got time.
So
Um,
let's so okay. So don't freak out, but we could use
I, th-
more.
I mean, and I'm gonna go out here. I have not talked to anyone involved about this, so this is entirely speculation. But I wouldn't be surprised if Cyrus came back, even at this point. Like I
Okay.
think the door is open for him. And I think that there have been conversations, and I think he's just kind of doing the thing he does, where he's like, I don't know, man, and kind of waits to come back. Now, maybe he's, I don't know, Manning because he doesn't want to say, yeah, I'm done. But there is that possibility. Like, we could add somebody really familiar who immediately makes our depth in midfield look a whole lot better. Um, you know, and he's here. He's here in town. We all know him. So that's one like possible little hopeful note. But having said all the hopeful notes, we're out of the hopeful notes now.
Uh-oh.
Um, because like 18 is a match day roster, and we don't have 18 players. We don't have a substitute goalkeeper. Um, you know, we have one spare defender. We have one spare midfielder. Um, and then we have like a plethora of attacking midfielders slash striker types, um, whom we like. That's fine, because
Yeah.
we can't afford a big money guy.
Yeah.
And what you're trying to do in that situation is, get enough
Suss out. Yeah.
get enough talent together so that you can kind of ride the hot hand, right? So you can kind of just rotate guys around. Connor gets hot, great, he's in. Francis starts to look like he's a little tired, cool. We've got six guys, like,
Yep.
for three positions, so we can just mix and match constantly. But in the midfield, if um, if anybody gets hurt, like, we're immediately in trouble. And in defense, if the wrong people get hurt, we immediately have to change shape.
Yep.
Um, you know, we have one wing back for each side, and that is it. Reese Williams could cover either side, but
Mhm.
there's just one of him. He can't play.
Mhm.
And so
Not
you know, I'm kind of
great.
I'm getting into the roster analysis a little bit,
Yeah.
but I mean,
W-
all of this is, it's not that Trevor's done anything wrong or there's anything like skewed about our planning for this season or anything. I think it's just that our money is very tight, our budget is very tight, and so that means that negotiations really go down to the wire because guys keep their options open because they're kind of like, I feel like I can get more money from somewhere else. And they'll kind of look at Trev and go, okay, yeah, I know my game will develop, but like, I think these guys will offer me 45 and you're offering me
mhm.
28 or whatever, 30.
30. Yeah.
Um, so, I'm just gonna chill for a bit. Like, especially if they feel like they're good enough that they'd be in the mix anyway. They're not really highly incented to join us right now. And they can see we only have 17 guys listed, so Trevor can't like strong arm them, can't be like, well, you're gonna miss the boat, too bad. Like, they're like, right, you're fucked, are you kidding me? So this stuff being public record doesn't help. But this is a big boy league, and
Yeah.
it is public record, so
Yeah.
it's
Got to work with it.
rough.
We can talk. So, with all of that being said, we have played some preseason matches. Um, do you want to talk about that a little bit,
Yeah.
and what your takeaways are from results of those? And I mean, it is preseason, whatever, but it is a good starting indicator.
Right.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
you know, I have seen one of the matches. I've seen the Indy 11 match, which was like a scrimmage. It was three 30-minute periods. It wasn't like a match. Um, but at the same time, it was played very intensely, and, you know, uh, it had a lot, like, it felt like a competitive
yeah,
situation. And I was incredibly, um, like, incredibly buoyed by what I saw. um,
interesting. Okay,
um, Indy, we've played Indy pretty much every year. That's one of
yeah,
the it's a place where
we've
Trevor was like the general manager, and he has a good reputation or a good relationship with them. Um, and so we play them every year, and I mean, they usually have kind of dragged us,
yeah,
and the
we've never
extent
beat
to which
them.
it's like you're kind of down to like the extent to which you're getting dragged. Like, okay, are we being dragged in a way that's promising, or are we just getting, like, like our arms pulled off? um and in this match, like, what was it, almost a month ago now, against Indy 11, was very early in preseason, and I mean, we really took them out for a dragging for long stretches. Uh, and it didn't. I mean, if you watched us play in the spring season last year, what you will see if you saw it would have been very familiar. Um, it's the same system we dominated Nisa with, that 3-4-3. That's kind of 3-4-3/5-2-3, where there's the two midfielders.
Hmm. They
That's
rotate.
like, and everything about, like, you look at that and you realize that, like, this is a team that Trevor's put together with this in his mind. Like, these players fit together so perfectly in that 3-4-3. Like, oh shit, like,
Yeah,
it really was impressive. So it's Of course, Nate at the back. He's our only keeper. Stevie in the middle of the defense, and Matt to his right. Devin Amuminsa playing to his left, playing that same role that like Anthony Manning played and Javon Torrey played, like the slightly more aggressive, more
Mhm.
attacking
Well, yeah, yeah,
outside back.
doesn't always come all the way back kinda
Right.
situation.
Right.
Yeah.
And then like so it created this kind of cool it creates this kind of cool thing where the center is very controlled. Which is the center is where you give up where the best shots come like happen.
Yeah. Yeah, you
So
have a
we've
lot of
got
outs.
right. We got and there's a lot of natural triangles made by the three center backs and the two midfielders
Mhm.
and their positioning. Um, and this is where I should probably start talking about specific players because it's not just the the kind of shape that makes it happen. It's the specific players and what they can
And
do.
their abilities. Yeah, let's just
And,
go into the players because I mean, the other ones are we don't know much about them, so
right, right, right. And we the other two matches we crushed a local university team, Oakland U, 4-0. And we drew 2-2 at Phoenix, where the big headline is those both goals were Francis Atuene.
Whew,
Um, so
and we'll get to that.
we'll get to that. Okay, so you know, we've gone over the bad scenarios. Let's talk about the talent we have here, which is substantial and I think massively underrated by people who are not Detroit City people. Um, if you're watching the conversation with other USL Championship nerds, um, they are
It's laughable.
very,
It's
very
laughable.
dismissive of the level of talent that we're going to bring to the table, and I think that it is going to be extremely pleasurable to
Cathartic
watch
even.
to watch them realize the depth of their hubris. Um, so anyway, returners. I mean, Stevie Carroll, obviously, he's our captain. He has really fully entered the Italian defender phase of his. Yeah, exactly. Oh, like so good of his career. Just like a field general. He's amazing. Connor, um, guy just is on the up. If I was to look at this roster and say what guy is going to go to Europe, um, it's hard to believe that Connor is one of the guys that you might say,
Maybe.
I could see,
Possible.
I could see, like, I'm not talking about like he's not going to go play for Barcelona, but like, a Swiss
I
side
was gonna say Swiss
or
or Sweden or something
or
like that.
like a
Yeah,
Belgian
absolutely.
second division side. Like, he's got a lot. And he's got, the things he is good at are very important in the modern game. So, Connor Ruts, everybody.
Who knew? Watch out.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and Matt Lewis, Matt, I feel like Matt's a guy that for some reason is easy to overlook, and is possibly, the most gifted defender on the team. Um, you know, he's great.
Glad we kept him.
Yeah, I'm glad he's still here, and not in El Paso. Um, Maxi Rodriguez is the guy who I think we all assumed we would lose off of that
Yeah.
NISA roster.
Yep.
But I think he loves it here, and uh, we'll see how it goes. I mean, he next to Brad Dunwell in that, which we'll get to it,
Yep.
in that central midfield looked really fucking great. Like,
Man, love to
oh,
hear it.
oh shit. Yeah, we'll get to it. Like the Brad Dunwell, I got some things to say because he's good. But Pato Boteo Faz, welcome back to the Duck. He is an incredible deep lying forward. I think really a fantastic complementary piece to a successful attacking team. And a lot of his troubles last year, I think, came from the fact that he was being asked to kind of
Play out.
be
Yeah.
be more, the number nine, and he's like, he'll wear the number nine, but he wants to scheme and he wants somebody else to get the glory. So uh, Yazid was a surprise, honestly, to me. Not surprised that he's around. Like the guy is just great, and I think that's kind of
He's
the
part of the
key.
culture.
He's part of the culture. Yazid is an absolute sweetheart, a great teammate, a guy that the other guys like a lot. And I think that he also brings a physical exuberance to the attacking line that no one else brings. So, if you've got somebody that's, out there just kicking people, you could throw Yazid in and be like, that guy. And he would enjoy that assignment. And then finally Bosch Tiny, like, Bosch is 18, or I think maybe 19, but he's very young, and so it is extremely premature to start trying to hype up Bosch as somebody who's going to, score a bunch of goals this year or whatever. I mean, I think a realistic pathway for him is if he can start, if he can get, I think he will get chances early on to show that he can do something, maybe late in matches,
Hmm.
um, and it will really be up to him to kind of seize those and prove that he's ready to contribute at this level, for him to get much playing time,
Yeah.
this year. But I mean, it's because he's a 19-year-old with a bunch of 25-year-olds.
Yep.
I mean, it's not a fair comparison. So, um, sorry. Um,
Semi-returner.
Semi-returner, the halfway between guy, Abdoulaye Diop. Lejap is, a fantastic, defensive midfielder. He is not starting, at the beginning of things I saw. I think mostly because of formation. We're only starting two central
Hmm.
midfielders in that formation, and he would be the third. But I mean, I don't think it's out of question that he wouldn't outcompete them over time for Maxi or Brad for playing time. We when we saw him, he was like an 18-year-old,
Yep.
19-year-old. He's now 22. He looks a little different, looks older. He's like, oh,
Grown
you're all,
up. Yeah.
you're all grown. It's weird. Um, but he plays all the good things, that were in his game are still there, and um, he plays a position where experience is useful. So,
Yeah.
his couple years in the USL have taught him a lot, I think. And I think that if at any point we revert to a four-man backline, I think Lejop is probably right in there as in the midfield behind Maxi and Brad. So
Nice.
we've
So
mentioned I mentioned Brad Dunwell like eight
yeah,
million
let's go
times. Let's
back.
talk about
Let's go
Brad Dunwell,
back.
who where is he from? Grand Rapids, I think.
He's
Yeah,
local-ish, I think,
yeah.
right?
He's a Michigan kid, who played at Wake Forest, and like if you watch college football and not soccer, you might be like, okay, Francis Etuene went to Michigan, okay, but those are two different deals. Michigan is sometimes a little competitive. Wake Forest is a top five year in, year out program in the NCAA. And Brad Dunwell started every match his entire career for Wake
91
Forest.
games. Yeah,
Yeah, he was
91
considered
games.
at the beginning of his senior year, he was considered the number three prospect for MLS in the nation.
Well, I
Um,
think I remember because didn't he played for the
he played for the
Bucks?
Bucks, yeah.
Oh, that's
He was
right.
somebody we couldn't get. He was somebody that was
Yes.
aspirational for us when he was in.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, he was aspirational for us because he's the best position midfielder that has ever worn this badge. He is bakey, but two-footed and quick. Like, it's really really remarkable to me. Like, it's funny because Trevor and I talked about, like, when Bakey retired, we are like, man, where are you going to find that guy? Like, oh my god, like, it's just that's the kind of player you just don't find. And then he found one a year later, like, here we go. Actually, here's the upgrade. Like, he went through the Pokemon evolution. um, he collected 8 Bakey cards and he turned into a Brad Dunwell. um,
Nice. Hell
but I
yeah.
mean,
Deck
I
building.
like if he can stay healthy. um, I think he's got a chance to be really great for us. I think he's you know I thought he was very good looking at his film, and then looking at him in our formation, I'm like, oh, he's way better than I thought. Oh my god, he's so good. um, it's weird because he's the kind of guy whose skill set ordinarily would make you think he wants to be an attacking player, or he should be an attacking player. You know, he's two-footed, he's
Mhm.
quick, he's real clean with the ball, he settles the ball like instantaneously and can move it along very quickly. Um, but it kind of goes to show you like how much just personality has to say about the way a player plays, because his focus almost entirely is on keeping possession and stringing things together, and it makes him this sort of like heroic connecting player. And what that means is that Maxi can bomb forward, like balls out craziness, and it's no big, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
that's awesome. That's like
and
a good yeah, holy shit.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, it looks like in motion. Like I could not believe this is the first preseason match. Like they looked so fluid, so smart. The interchanges were crazy. Devin, who's the next guy that I'm about to talk about, kept stepping into midfield to kind of to create overloads.
Yep.
That Indy was just kind of like, what the fuck, guys? Like it's week one. Like it was there was clearly kind of a after even like 90 seconds, they just had this
Like
exasperating like,
fucking really?
Jesus, what? You guys have been practicing since December or some bullshit? What is happening here? Yeah.
So
So
Devin,
next guy, David Amumensa. I'll tell you what, like,
name might sound familiar.
might sound a little familiar. Has played 2 years for the Michigan Stars, but you know, he
Anissa
fits.
All
He
Star.
just fits like a glove. Like came straight in, gets the culture, fits tactically, is like loves that he's come to the light side. um, it's really pretty great. I mean, he voluntarily retweeted a thing about the U.S. Open Cup matchup against the Stars, like looking forward to this.
Yep.
So he's not shying away from it entirely. I think that he probably wants to distance himself from the antics.
He did what he had to do to get where he is.
Right, right. It let him here today. It's fine. Um, okay, so next two are the wingbacks. Declan Wynn is. I really went into his history. He's I think 26 or 27. He's a quick, smart, left-footed wingback. Who really that's basically what he plays. He can play as a wingback, as a defensive winger, um, but he's not really an out-and-out winger. You know, he's not super tricky, but he is smart. He plays with his head up. He connects passes really well. He crosses the ball well, and he's playing the role that Jimmy Filerman played last year. But with more height and speed and like mental acuity. So he looks very good. He's a New Zealand international. He's actually born in Johannesburg, same as Zeke Matthews. So they were born in the same. Born in South Africa, but he's a New Zealand international. That was part of his story.
Mm-hmm.
Is he?
Oh, that's who this guy
He's the
is.
guy who got
Okay.
he's the guy who got called up.
Oh, okay.
Like he was a. I mean, like if you're
Yeah, go ahead
quick
and
and
yeah.
left-footed in a small country, getting capped is not like rocket science. Like be quick and left-footed and be in a small country, and you're going to get international caps, right? And
Well,
that's what happened. He's a quick left-footed wingback who but as soon as he's like 18, they're like, "God, crikey, look at him run!" And so they called him up, and I mean, he played World Cup qualifiers. He played in important matches for the main New Zealand team as like a 19-year-old, and then played a couple matches in Olympic qualifying, like later that summer. Like it's like he played in the fall and the spring for the main team, played in the Olympic qualifying matches, and as soon as those matches happened, the other team kind of protested the result, knowing that there was no way. They kind of they'd seen an interview, like a newspaper thing, where he talked about moving to New Zealand at some age, and the rule at that point was that you had to live, I believe, 10 years in the country
Oh
you were
wow.
you were hoping to represent, and have no path to representing the country that you formerly would have represented. Like it's the rules have changed a great deal, and partly because of what Declan went through. That all that one-time switch stuff and all that kind of really got into motion after he got screwed really publicly. But what happened was he was vilified in New Zealand as this like as a 19-year-old because they didn't make the Olympics. They were disqualified. Um, so that's
It's such a bummer.
that was rough. And
Yeah.
since he's bounced around the championship mostly, and it looks like I mean, he looks good, you know. Um, so I don't know. Reese Williams is he's our right
Yeah.
back. Um,
Yep.
Reese's main thing is that he's an incredible man marker. He's a really great athlete. He has kind of fantastic lateral quickness, and so like his typical like the signature move, what I think of as the Reese Williams, is that he can kind of like Spider-Man up on you, up on a dribbler, and just sort of run along with them while seemingly like in their space. Like he he
He
makes
also plays really high too, doesn't he?
yeah, he tends to play pretty high. But
That's
I
because
mean,
he was at Stumptown, right?
he was at Stumptown. Well, and they also played him at the six a little bit.
Yeah, they did. Because
Because he's a
yeah,
great athlete. He covers tons of ground. Like he's very quick. Um, so I know that pace on the wings was something we were worried about. Um, and in Declan and Reese, I think we've kind of answered those questions. Like, okay, we're
I
all right.
gave Reese so much shit when he was here
Yeah,
because I was in the South last year and Reese was like right
right.
in front of us the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Reese.
We'll make it up to you.
Yeah.
Um, okay, fine. Stretch around here. I'm like starting to
Whew.
flop sweat. Antoine Hoppeneau like okay. If you go back to my article about Antoine, that was kind of where the signing of Antoine was where I said, okay, listen, everybody, this is going to be a tough season, um, because he's a 31-year-old. He's kind of had some journeyman aspects to his career. He's never put up huge numbers really anywhere. But looking into like that was kind of my knee jerk reaction to it, and um, I saw some promising things in some of the numbers from the last couple of years, but mostly I just wanted to reflect on the truth as I understood it and still do, which is that money will out, and that we don't have that much of their money. So, um, but all of that is to say that I feel like I kind of underrated Antoine in his preview piece, uh, because I mean he is what I compare a lot of these guys to like superhero versions of guys we've seen in Nisa or whatever. Brad Dunwell is like superhero Bakey. Antoine Hoppeneau is superhero Brian Bement. Okay, without the
Mm.
dick aspect. Okay.
Okay.
Brian Bement, if you don't remember, is it like he's a movement striker, plays for Chattanooga. One of it, like it's hard to like ignore. It's hard to ignore the fact that he's like really douchey on the pitch. But Antoine Hoppeneau is not. Antoine Hoppeneau is awesome. He has amazing hair, but he is a similar type of player in that his movement is always thoughtful and clever and creating problems, and um, he consistently makes really good decisions on and off the ball in the attacking third. And I think he's going to be really important for us this year. Um, he's somebody, I think he played for
He played for Forward Madison and he
last year,
played for uh 2019.
2019. I'm talking about last year. He played for
Oh,
USL team
last year,
championship.
who? Brian? Oh no, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Sorry, I was
You
looking
looking
at
at
Brian
Brian
Bement.
Bement?
Yeah, no,
He
sorry. He
was like
Hopino was at Louisville.
Louisville, right? Okay. So I mean, and I think they were pissed when we signed him. They were like, "What?" He was an important, um,
He, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. Sorry, yep,
he was an
yeah,
important
you're right.
player for them, and they were a good team. They went to playoffs last year, um, and he signed with us, and I don't know if Louisville decided to move on from him or if Trevor had a good pitch, but I mean, I want to say that I did massively underrate him in that earlier in the player announcement article, I think, and yeah, I think he's going to be very very important for us.
Nice.
Okay, I'm gonna do these. Michael Bryant is the only defender that is not a lockdown starter, which means he's likely to be incredibly important um, once injuries come into play. Without Michael Bryant, a single injury anywhere in the back line means that we have to change shape, and two injuries means that we're just hosed. He's a guy that he's another like Reese Williams and like Devin Amumensa is a guy that we had played in Nisa that that Trevor has seen a bunch,
Nisa
and
All Star.
yeah, he was an East All Star, and really, I mean, it was pretty. To me, if you watched Cal United play, like he was clearly the best, kind
Mm-hmm.
of defender, um, and he was frequently trying to kind of hold together a kind of a crazy quilt of different players, and he also brings a really excellent like cop mustache to the field. So, that's something. But no, Michael Bryant really, I think he's likely to be incredibly important. He's a good, flexible defender who can really play all across the back line or deep in midfield in a pinch. Distributes well, big guy. Um, so anyway, uh,
Yeah, no, it's good.
and Francis Etuene, like so in 2017 when when Detroit City was like getting hot and tearing it up. Um,
Yep.
we didn't really like we didn't get as much attention as maybe we might have, especially
Nope.
like Tyrone Mondi, because there was this other dude for this other team that won a national championship, and that other dude was Francis Etuene, and that other team was the Flint Bucks or the Michigan Bucks. Um, he they played who did they play in the Open Cup that year?
In
That's the match.
2017.
I'm trying to remember.
Oh boy,
It was 20.
I
There
can
was
look it up if you want to keep going.
there, but Francis is a very quick attacking player. I think he's played a lot. He's played at the USL Championship level since being drafted in the first round by FC Dallas in a couple years ago. Um, Dallas, he had some. First of all, Dallas is a much more difficult place to break in as an MLS attacking player
Yep.
than virtually anywhere else. Um, you know, I'm talking maybe Seattle's harder, um, but that's about it. Atlanta, maybe. As an attacking player at MLS, FC Dallas is kind of a nightmare destination for you in the draft because they have an academy that is churning out talent now, and a lot of that talent is inside lefts who are really quick, whom you have to beat out. And Francis, and they're 17 and you're 23 or whatever.
Yep.
He did make, I think, one appearance for FC Dallas, and in his like 20 minutes scored the game-winning goal, and then never got another look. They kept loaning him out to USL. Just like I think he had a 3-year deal. He had the standard MLS 3-year
Mm-hmm.
deal,
Yep. Yep.
and got loaned out. He was basically like it was like he signed for Chelsea. He just got loaned out 3 different places. Established no continuity anywhere. Struggled with injuries here and there because uh,
Yeah.
until fairly recently, even USL Championship sides sometimes were pretty sketchy on what they were spending on like medical um, support.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of reasons to think that this is the place where he can come good. He is the quick finisher you know that we've been looking for years. I think, um, and I think that's probably how we're going to use him. I don't imagine we're going to start him as an inside left unless we're doing. Um, unless Pato's the starting striker and he's, a de facto midfielder dropping deep.
Yep.
And just
Yep.
got a
Yep.
couple guys bombing in behind him. Um, and that's Francis, and that brings us to Billy.
So back to what you said about the Open Cup too, before you move on to the next thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
2017,
Let's put that on. Good.
2017, he played for the Bucks Open Cup. They beat Ann Arbor 1
Right,
nothing at home,
right.
I think. They beat Indy 11 when they were in the NASL,
Hmm.
and then they played St. Louis Football Club.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Rest in pepperoni. Um, and they lost at home against St. Louis, but Francis had a ridiculous volley goal in that game.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but they ended up losing 2-1 at home
I mean,
to St. Louis.
you know, if you're interested in this kind of stuff and you want to like, if you just go on YouTube and look him up, and you will see some highlights that you'll be like, oh shit, like, all right. The you know the underlying concern is that his numbers overall are not have not been impressive as a professional, and you know the hope is um, that there's a lot of context around those failures, that he really hasn't been in a place that's going to kind of cherish him the way we will, um, for want of a
Yep,
better
yep,
explanation. So
yep. Give him the time of day.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, yeah, I think he's got a lot to give. Okay,
So, last one.
last one. Um, Billy Forbes. I we keep saying talking about things I wrote, but this is the one where probably we need to talk about what I wrote the most because it came out today, and it's talking about the situation around our signing of Billy Forbes. Um, so, just for background, briefly, Billy Forbes is a 31-year-old attacking player, right-footed from Turks and Caicos. He is a guy who he scored the winning goal as a rookie in the 2014 NASL Soccer Bowl, for San Antonio. He's played, I think, 3 different times with San Antonio in 2 different leagues, and also played for like 5 other teams in the USL, if you include Detroit City, over the last 6 years, or six over the last 7 years, if you include Detroit City. Um, so he's a guy who moves around a lot, and he's like a journeyman. He has been productive as a player everywhere he's been.
He
Um,
looks like he has good numbers, but maybe a little bit inconsistent.
Right. It seems like like he's not an out and out striker. He's an inside left. It seems like every striker. There's so few strikers nowadays. Everybody wants to be Sadio Mane or uh, Mo Salah. You know, nobody
Yeah.
wants to be poor Bobby Firmino. Um, so uh, I think that I mean, it looks like he can play up top or off of the wing. The main thing for me that I see in his game is, he's a very aggressive attacking player, and he has a quick, heavy shot, um, which he gets off. I mean, he can let it rip. If you give him just a little space, um, and when he hits it right, I mean, he's one of those guys. It reminds me a little bit of like Josie Altidore, who when he scores, it's usually like he's trying to tear the net off.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, he
Power
doesn't.
fuck.
Yeah, he isn't one of those guys. He's not going to tap it and let it trickle to the back post. Like no, he wants to thunder him in, and he does. I mean, his finishing is pretty good. Um, Having said that, um, I'm going to tell a slightly more personal story now, I think, than I told in the story I wrote today, if that's okay.
Yeah, no. Go ahead.
Um, so the story I wrote today had to do with rumors um, about Billy Forbes that have swirled around him for a while, and which kind of came to a head when I believe Phoenix or no Miami announced that he wasn't coming back, or Phoenix announced he wasn't. Somebody like there was some kind of like something that let people know he was in a different city and maybe in Detroit, and immediately people who are identify as supporters of USL Club started making kind of you know snarky jokes about Billy and good riddance, and saying, and then other people on like USL Discord saying kind of fuck this guy. Um, so um, what we heard from people um, turns like we should establish that these are rumors, as far as we know, but that uh, the club has looked into them and has decided that there's nothing um, substantiable there. The rumors have to do with him being, essentially a sexual predator, um, someone who, um, started a swimwear line to try to date the models, and um, who does the, hey, come to my party thing, and then it turns out there's no party. There's just you and him, and he wants to, have sex with you. Um, and what I said in my story was that, I think we need to make very certain um, that we aren't in the process of trying to seek justice for a disenfranchised um, populace um, in women, that we don't, in our understandable zealotry to create this future that we want to see, that we don't in that process create other harms against other
Disadvantage.
minoritized
Yeah.
communities. And what I'm talking about here is specifically the tendency for white supremacy to interpret um, innocent behaviors as sexual predation when the person doing the behavior is a black man. And in some parts of the country, especially a black islander, there's a real, cultural stereotype of black islanders as like remorseless Lotharios that isn't supported by data. It's just one of those anecdotal and frankly racist, memes that people share around. Um, and that's my concern at this point, because
Yeah.
I know for a fact that Detroit City has looked into this, and I know that they know exactly what I'm talking about because I called them. Okay, when I heard this stuff on Discord, I have Tiffany's number, I have Trevor's number. I talked to Jamie, who's Jam Jam. She's gonna come in here. She was the one who was hearing this stuff, and I asked her to go back to her sources and see how, is this credible? Like, should we, this was last Sunday, and I knew that Billy's paperwork had been submitted to the league already. So I was concerned that if what we were looking at here was a morals breach, that that the club could vet it and find it and not enter the contract.
Yeah.
My feeling was that time was of the essence. So I called Tiffany on Sunday while I was working at my job, and asked her if it would be fine if I had her talk to Jamie, and that I told her, I passed along what I had heard on those message boards, and she, sounded concerned, obviously, but also said that, she'd be very surprised um, if Trevor heard anything like this, and if he had heard it, that he would have immediately dug in further to try to substantiate it, but that she was going to go back and double check and make sure that you know um, that we weren't, stumbling
Mhm.
ethically here. Um, and that's the last time I talked to her. Okay. Um, but I know that this is not the kind of situation that either of them would ignore. And I also know that if they had found anything substantiable, they would find a way to keep slow walking this until they got enough information to make a decision.
Yep.
So the fact that they're announcing him to me tells me that they've done their due diligence and that they believe this to be, either a misunderstanding or a misunderstanding, exacerbated by racism. Um, there's no way for us to know,
No.
the truth of it. But what I wrote today was that I just hope that everyone can kind of hold, the victims in our hearts while also holding, Billy in our hearts in a way to like say, okay, um, assuming that none of, like you're saying, none of this is true, and we've come to the conclusion that none of this is true, and so, like, I just think you need to understand that, like, we're there is not a single bit of wiggle room for you in this scenario. That the first ghost of anything verging upon this kind of behavior you know, will be dealt with harshly. Um, and I have a feeling that's exactly what they did. You know,
Yeah.
I know that they're not afraid to have very direct and difficult conversations with players in situations where it's necessary, and I have a feeling this is one of those situations. And
It's
the
not the
fact
first
that
time they've had to do it.
right. Um, so I I understand that the internet is not a place where nuance lives a long life. Um, but I hope that because we are a real community and not, a purely parasocial phenomenon, that we can display the kind of, ambivalence and reserve that maturity demands um, in these situations.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh.
done talking about that now.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that and putting that out there. And I
Ugh,
don't know if you can see YouTube chat, but
I can't.
definitely people are saying the same. Appreciate you sharing.
Yeah,
It's very important perspective to have.
I just
I
want everybody to know that like there is zero chance that they just kind of glossed past this. Like that is the like of the people that are like, but what about like the kind of the main kind of question? But what about what if they're just like they just need players and it just never came up. Like, okay, well, first of all, I know it came up because I brought it up, and I also know Tiffany and Trevor, and I know the kind of that they understand the kind of culture that we want to build here, and that they're like a lot of their reason for wanting to be here is because of that culture. They wouldn't undermine the culture that is the specific reason why they wanted to be here.
yeah,
uh, so I don't know, that's
yeah.
me.
No, I mean like that. What's really frustrating or I don't even know what word I want to use to describe it, but just difficult about this situation is that um, there's not going to be like a clean answer, solution, whatever. Like there's not going to be resolution other than like, okay, well, he signed, they did their due diligence, we have to
Yeah.
accept that and move forward with it. And I
Well,
mean, I don't want to rephrase what you said. Like what you said was perfect.
it is a situation where the only possible further developments are negative,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
there's never going to be like a, oh my god, he's completely exonerated.
Yeah.
from what? From multiple
Which
different
is
allegations of different kind of weird stuff. Like, no, that's never going to happen. But there could be something where it's like, here's the proof, and you know, um, and then we're really holding a bag of shit.
yep.
Um, and you know, the club. I mean, like this idea that the club is going to be like, well, what can we do? I mean, do you understand how much money the club left on the table on
Yeah.
this
Well, yeah, do you want to
on
talk
this
about Bang really
sponsorship
quick?
thing? I mean, I don't know that much about Bang. Honestly, I had no idea it fucking existed until Sunday night. And then,
It's because you're not on TikTok.
right. Well, and I'm just, I'm old. I don't drink energy drinks. Like I drink fucking coffee, like coffee exists. Why do I need like, yerba mate, but without any
Hey
of the good
now.
stuff? Like, but it's like
Hey.
but that's yerba mate is like the original shit.
Of
This is
course.
like kind of like
Oh,
can
bullshit.
like a
It's
neural
mad
net
scientist.
AI
Yeah, it's mad
made
scientist
an
bullshit.
imitation of it. They all taste terrible. Like 100% of the energy drinks I've ever had in my life, Rip It, Red Bull, I'm sure this stuff, all just taste like fucking diarrhea water. It's just awful. What the fuck, people? America,
So
coffee, okay? Coffee.
let's
Anyway,
call well I don't even know if we need to address the Bang stuff. I mean, it was pretty publicly played out. It
yeah.
was resolved really quickly. We shouldn't doubt our club. I mean, they've proven time and time again that
I mean, when people say, "Well, why don't you think it's this worst thing?" to me, which I mean, one of my subscribers, like posited that a couple hours before we came on the air. I was like, "Why don't you think it's, us just whatever?" I'm like, "Well, because like every time we've had an opportunity to figure out what the club is doing, it turns out they're doing the right thing. And that repetition is what teaches us to trust them, not like it's not just like we're all just naive
yeah.
little moon pies just getting, on that Sean Man fairy dust, Um, they like
Oh my
this
god.
club has been consistent about what it stands for and what it believes in really for a decade. And I was shocked to learn that they hadn't rejected that sponsorship at the first hurdle. Like that's the one thing that concerns me is like how much money are we talking here? Like $250,000 is what I'm guessing. That'd be my guesstimate of what a shirt sponsorship and the corner sponsorship and all that came to. $250,000, right? Like
Yeah,
first of all, to the guy who's like, what about Billy Forbes? What if they couldn't afford it? Like, I mean, they left a lot more money on the table with
and
Bang
Billy
than
Forbes.
Billy
Yeah,
Forbes.
exactly.
Um, and I mean, that's right off the bottom line. That's right. It's coming out of expenses. It's that's there was a memo on Monday night asking every department to figure out how they could cut 5%
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's that kind of deal. So we did the right thing, but like we're getting like like usual, doing the right thing in this universe gets you punished, and city will be punished for this, um, financially. Um, so I say
Call your rich friends.
well, and yeah, we could use a new sleeve sponsor. I'm sure. If anybody's got a quarter mil floating around, or I don't even know. I mean, I'm just saying that,
That's
based upon what
standard
I know
for
about the
the yeah.
prospectus from 3 years ago and the different league, different time, whatever. But
Inflation,
yeah,
transitory finance words.
exactly. Yeah. Um, I think that the Bang energy thing is just yet another situation where where the cynicism of the normies toward Detroit City was once again proven useless, um, and frankly just kind of shitty. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like hating on Detroit City's got to get boring and like got to feel bad because you're just
You're
like
just always
you're just
wrong.
taking
You're
L's. You're
just
just like
always
taking
wrong.
fucking L's. Like woo. Like, I mean, unless you're just living for the L's. You're like Mr. L, that's my thing. I love losing.
Oh
I just I
God.
want to doubt Detroit City. Like, okay. I mean, I guess. Um, I don't even know what I'm talking
Do I
about.
need to fade this music in?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just babbling, telling people that they suck. Been ranting for 2 hours.
um, I mean, really, I said it was going to be a 2 hour special. We literally turned over the 2 hour mark at that moment.
Ding.
So good timing. Um, so we're making this a weekly thing. Tune in
Much shorter
much
for
shorter.
this.
Yeah, now that we got all that stuff out of the way, we can really dive into the nitty gritty of the weekly news that's going to be developing, and so people who can't stay as hyper connected as we are, will at least be able to recap it, relive it, and experience it through a lens that is a little more digestible. So for next week's show, we're gonna probably stay up to the minute info on the men's side, right?
Yep. And we'll also, we'll take a look at the first opponent. We'll take a look at San Antonio. I'll probably focus on them on the pitch, and then we're going to get hot takes like hotcakes from the righteous and imitable Jam Jam. And she will fill us in on their culture and what they're like off the pitch. While, Dion and I fill our niches.
Just gently moving the conversation and making it all happen, right, between the
Right,
two of us.
right. I mean, I
um
don't know what I do. I just got to ramble until I realize I've forgotten what the question was.
you're the content guy.
Jesus.
Thanks, guys, folks.
Thanks,
Trying to
everybody.
stop you guys still.
Yeah.
Thanks, folks. Thanks for
Thanks,
tuning in.
y'all.
Thanks, y'all. We'll see you next Wednesday around 7:30. Thanks for tuning in. um Fuck Ohio
Fuck
still.
Ohio. Do we still say fuck Ohio? Do we even have any? Do we play people in
No,
Ohio?
no, we
Yeah.
don't.
So we need to fuck somewhere else, or think of we need a different tagline. Let's tune in next week for our new tagline.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Are we still going? Are we still on? Oh my
Good,
God.
good, good, good.